ambulances to New York City today. 60 ambulances to New York City today. 60 ambulances to New York City today. We have a total of 60. We're getting some additional ones with up to 190 more to follow at different locations. To date, FEMA has obligated more than $1.3 billion in federal support to the state of New York. So we're spending a lot of money in New York. It's a hotbed. There's no question about it. And we're spending a lot of time, effort on New York, New Jersey. Spoke with Governor Cuomo a lot. Spoke with Governor Murphy a lot in New Jersey. And we're really getting the job done. People are very impressed, and I'm very impressed by the people in FEMA, the people in the Army Corps of Engineers, because what they've done, I've never seen anybody do anything like it. In addition to the 8,100 ventilators that we've already delivered over the next 48 hours, we're delivering more than 1,000. We're going 400 ventilators are going to Michigan very shortly, 300 going to New Jersey, 150 ventilators to Illinois, 150 to Louisiana, and 50 to Connecticut. FEMA and HHS already delivered 11.6 million N95 respirators, 26 million surgical masks, 5.3 million face shields, 4.4 million surgical gowns, and 22 million gloves. And I don't know if you just saw it, just came over the wires, that Ford just announced just a little while ago that they will produce, along with General Electric Healthcare, 50,000 ventilators, 50,000 ventilators, and 50,000 ventilators, and they're going to be doing it in less than 100 days. And top of that, we have other companies that are doing ventilators, including General Motors, but we have 9 other companies doing ventilators. As we outpace what we need, we're going to be sending them to Italy. We're going to be sending them to France. We're going to be sending them to Spain, where they have tremendous problems, and other countries as we can. But the fact that we're doing so many so quickly is a tribute to our great companies. More than 14,000 National Guard members have been activated and can help supplement state and local efforts to distribute personal protective equipment, where we're sending a lot. We have plane loads coming in. We have 51 loads from various locations all around the world, and they're landing. We had our first big cargo plane land this morning, and we're getting it from all over the world. And we're also sending things that we don't need to other parts. I just spoke to the Prime Minister of Italy, and we have additional capacity. We have additional product that we don't need. We're going to be sending approximately $100 million worth of things, of surgical and medical and hospital things to Italy. And Giuseppe was very, very happy. I will tell you that they're having a very hard time. Joining us this afternoon are CEOs of the great American companies that are fulfilling their patriotic duty by producing or donating medical equipment to help meet our most urgent needs. What they're doing is incredible, and these are great companies. Darius Domschek of Honeywell, you know that, and Darius has been somebody that I've dealt with in the past, and he's a great leader of a great company. Deborah Waller of Jockey International. A friend of mine, Mike Lindell of My Pillow. Boy, do you sell those pillows? That's unbelievable what you do. David Taylor of Procter & Gamble, and Greg Hayes of United Technologies Corporation. And I just want to tell all of you that America is very grateful to you and what you've done. Amazing job you've done, and we thank you very much. I'd like you to come up and say a couple of words, if you might, about your companies. Mike, come on up. Come on up, fellas, please. Come on up. You have to say what you're doing, because it's been really incredible. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay, well, My Pillow is a U.S. vertically integrated company which has been forced to adjust to the changing business environment as a result of the pandemic. My Pillow is uniquely positioned as a U.S. company that functions as a manufacturer, logistics management distributor, and direct-to-consumer. Given our current business lines, we are experiencing the effects of this pandemic firsthand. What My Pillow has done, we've established an internal task force which is monitoring future needs of companies across the country as a result of this pandemic. And given our position, we've begun to research and develop new protocols to address the current and future needs of U.S. businesses across multiple sectors. How companies are going to prepare themselves when they once again open up, and changes to their current operations in order to adjust to future threats and pandemics. My Pillow has designated some of its call center to help U.S. companies navigate the many issues that resulted from this pandemic. We've dedicated 75% of my manufacturing to produce cotton face masks. In 3 days, I was up to 10,000 a day. By Friday, I want to be up to 50,000 a day. I'm proud to manufacture our products in the United States, and I'm even more proud to be able to serve our nation in this great time of need. Thank you, Mr. President, for your call to action, which has empowered companies like My Pillow to help our nation win this invisible war. Now I wrote something off the cuff, if I can read that. God gave us grace on November 8, 2016, to change the course we were on. God had been taken out of our schools and lives. A nation had turned its back on God. And I encourage you to use this time at home to get back in the Word, read our Bibles, and spend time with our families. Our president gave us so much hope where just a few short months ago, we had the best economy, the lowest unemployment, and wages going up. It was amazing. With our great president, vice president, and this administration, and all the great people in this country praying daily, we will get through this and get back to a place that's stronger and safer than ever.
Please come on. I did not know he was going to do that, but he's a friend of mine, and I do appreciate it. Thank you, Mike, very much. Please.
First of all, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, the entire administration, and all the agencies, thank you for your strong leadership during this time of crisis. It is noticed, and it's making a difference. Second of all, I'd like to say a big thank you to all the healthcare workers out there. You're putting yourself in harm's way every day, and we really respect what you're doing, and we couldn't be thankful enough for it. And I can tell you that more help's on the way. We as Honeywell, we're an industrial technology company. And one of the businesses that we're in, we protect the industrial worker. But what we're doing today is we're repurposing a lot of that equipment to serve the healthcare worker. A few days ago, we announced the startup of a new manufacturing facility in Rhode Island. We're going to be hiring 500 employees. We have already 200 on board, and we're going to be starting the production of N95 masks within the next 2 weeks. Furthermore, today we're announcing the startup of another manufacturing facility in Arizona. We're going to be hiring another 500 people, and we're going to be starting up production in that facility by the middle of May. So in total, we've doubled our production of N95 masks already. It's going to double again within the next 60 days. And then within the next 90 days, we're going to have 5x the capacity we do today. Furthermore, we're going to be providing other safety equipment to support all the efforts going on. Lastly, I'll say a big thank you to all the Honeywell employees, and also announce a $10 million fund for them, for all the hourly and administrative employees who are having a hard time during this time of crisis. Thank you, Mr. President.
Fantastic. Thank you. Normally I shake his hand, but we're not supposed to do that anymore. So that's okay. Great job. Thank you, Dr. Well. Please go ahead, second stage.
Thank you, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, on your guidance during this unprecedented time. And I'm very honored to be here today. Founded by a minister 144 years ago, Jockey International is a family-owned company headquartered in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Since 1876, we have been providing socks and underwear for generations of families. It is part of our DNA to roll up our sleeves and help our country in her time of need. During World War II, we made parachutes for the military. And today we are eager to serve this great country by providing support for the healthcare workers on the front lines of this fight. As the President and Vice President have said, It's a whole of America approach, and we are committed. Jockey has had a long-standing partnership with Encompass Group, headquartered in Georgia, serving the healthcare community. When we learned of the critical need for PPE, we knew we had to help. That meant restarting production on Tier 3 isolation gowns. Monumental lifting by Jockey, Encompass, FEMA, and the FDA was done in just a few days to be production ready. As a result, we expect to begin delivering 30 to 50,000 gowns per week, helping those that need it the most right now. In addition, this week, we are also donating 10,000 units of scrubs to the frontline doctors and nurses at the Javits Convention Center in New York City. We would not have been able to do this without the collaboration of the administration, representatives from the federal agencies, and Congressman Brian Stiles. Thank you very much, Mr. President and Mr. Vice President.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, for bringing us together today. I'm proud to be able to represent the men and women of Procter & Gamble, who every day, 24 hours a day, are working to build and make essential cleaning products, hygiene products, and healthcare products for families everywhere. These include healthcare workers and for institutions that are serving those on the front line. P&G people are the faces of brands you know and trust. Brands like Tide, Pampers, Bounty, Charmin, Mr. Clean, and Vicks. In addition to making, packing, and shipping these essential items, they've worked together to transform our plants to make things we've never made before, like hand sanitizers and facial masks. Some of these are already getting to national, state, and local agencies. Some of them are in the hospitals already. Everywhere around the world, P&G people are working every day to serve everybody, consumers, and they're working together to bring together the full capability of our research and development, our engineering, our manufacturing, and our communications capability to make sure we make a difference to the consumers we serve and to all the audience that we can make a difference to. I want to thank them, and I'm very grateful for what they do every day in service to others. Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, for bringing us together today.
Thank you. The pleasure again. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Greg Hayes from United Technologies. And on behalf of the 240,000 employees of United Technologies and the 70,000 employees at Raytheon, which will join together with UTC this Friday, I want to first of all say thank you to the President and the Vice President for your leadership during what is really a war. It is a different war than anybody has ever fought before, but it's a war that we're uniquely qualified to help. As one of the world's largest defense contractors and some of the best technology, we're using that technology to try and solve some real-world problems. Today, we're working with the Air Force to try and help pilots as they're moving medical evacuees with the COVID-19 virus, such that they can be protected and that the patients can be protected. Again, we're working also with logistics, and if you think about a war, strategy is important, but logistics wins war. And it's imperative, I think, with FEMA, along with Mr. Navarro's office, that we coordinate all of these activities. Last week, we donated about 90,000 pieces of personal protective equipment to FEMA. Next week, we'll have another almost million. Again, working through our supply chain partners around the world. We're also today, this week, beginning the manufacture of face shields. Using the additive technologies that we have and the machines that we have available within UTC, we'll be able to produce approximately 10,000 shields in the next 4 weeks. Again, all needed equipment. We stand ready to help in any way we can. We don't need the Defense Production Act to ask us to act. All of the people at UTC and Raytheon are focused on this war and winning it. Again, I also want to say thank you to all of our employees for their work during this crisis, as well as to the frontline medical and other first responders. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Fantastic. Great company. Those are great companies. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Seema to come up and say a few words about what you're doing and what's happening and how positive it's been. I really appreciate it. Come on up, Seema. Irma.
Thank you, Mr. President. And let me start by saying I want to convey my deepest sympathies to those that have lost loved ones to the coronavirus. We're all thinking of you. Today is Doctors' Day, and even without it, I want to send a message of gratitude to the foot soldiers in this war, men and women that are providing care and comfort to Americans that have been affected by the virus. Your country is grateful. And in short, as the President has said, we are engaged in a war against an invisible enemy. In wartime, the assumptions of peacetime must be revisited and adjusted to meet the demands of the moment. And so under the President's leadership, CMS is waiving a wide and unprecedented range of regulatory requirements. Now, many healthcare systems won't need these waivers, and they shouldn't use them if they don't need them, but the flexibilities are there. In a time of crisis, regulations shouldn't stand in the way of patient care. And there are several components to our announcement today, but the first one is CMS's Hospitals Without Walls. And this is going to allow hospital systems to create new treatment sites outside of their facility to expand capacity and be able to safely separate patients that are infected with the coronavirus and those that are not. Now, FEMA is doing incredible work setting up temporary hospitals in New York and other areas. But under these waivers, we are empowering local communities to complement and augment the work of FEMA and allowing hospital systems to tap into the capacity that already exists in their communities, making use of dorms and hotels or gymnasiums, and allowing the main hospital to focus on those that need the most intensive care. There are surgery centers out there today that are delaying elective surgeries, and they may have excess capacity that can be devoted to hospital-like care. We are also making changes to the Medicare program to facilitate testing. So some people that need a coronavirus test can't leave their home, or patients that are in a nursing home, and now we will pay for labs to go out to these locations and perform testing. And we're also expanding the workforce. We are taking action today to relax some of our regulations to allow hospitals to increase their workforce. And we're allowing a broad range of flexibilities so that we can let healthcare workers operate at the top of their license. And we are also allowing our hospitals to provide more support for our healthcare workers. Under today's regulations, they can only provide minimal support to healthcare workers, but now we're going to allow them to provide childcare, meals, laundry services. And then there's also telehealth. The President already directed a dramatic expansion of telehealth to our nation's 62 million seniors with Medicare, and we're so proud of all the healthcare providers and patients that have rapidly implemented telehealth. But today we're announcing that we're going to go even further, and we're going to be paying for doctors to make phone calls with their patients and provide care over the phone. And we're getting rid of long-standing barriers to telehealth in the Medicare program, allowing emergency rooms to use telehealth and eliminating requirements that some visits be provided face-to-face. And I also want to mention that on Saturday, the President directed CMS to offer advance payments for healthcare providers that are experiencing cash flow problems. We know that many providers are complying with our recommendations to delay non-essential elective surgeries, and they shouldn't be penalized for doing the right thing. Now, I've barely scratched the surface of all the flexibilities that we are offering healthcare workers and healthcare systems. These flexibilities will provide a lot of flexibility from regulations that are ill-suited to the unprecedented needs of this emergency. And doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals that are working long hours and sacrificing times with their families and risking their lives will have the flexibility that they need to confront the needs of the coronavirus pandemic. And there are many heroes in this war, but I want to take an opportunity to thank the team at CMS. These folks have worked day and night. The flexibilities that are in this regulation, and any regulation, usually take CMS a year, but we did this in 2 weeks, and I couldn't be more honored and privileged to serve alongside these dedicated public servants. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You did a fantastic job, and you're doing a great job.
Good job.
So we are in the midst of something that is very difficult, but we are going to win. It's just a question of when. We want to do it as quickly as possible. We want to have as few deaths as possible. And we will meet again tomorrow for some statistics and some updates as to where we are, where we think we're going, and timing. I think timing is going to be very important because we have to get our country back. We have to get our country back to where it was and maybe beyond where it was, because we've learned so much. But we will have lost a lot of people. And in many ways, they're heroes. And if you look at what's happening with our medical professionals, it's a danger. They're warriors. Men and women are doing a job that the likes of which I don't think anyone's ever seen. I see them coming out of planes today, going into New York, going into the most dangerous locations, dangerous areas, and they go in there and they just want to do the job. And you see the numbers like I see the numbers. I have some friends that are unbelievably sick. We thought they were going in for a mild stay, and in one case, he's unconscious in a coma. And you say, how did that happen? So I just want to thank all of the great professionals, men and women, doctors and nurses and paramedics and first responders and law enforcement. By the way, if you look at New York and you see how the effect that this had on law enforcement, it's been incredible. These are great people. Firefighters, great people. They're helping in so many different ways. So thank you very much. And if you'd like, we'll take a few questions. John, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yesterday, you said that you would be extending the guidelines through the end of April and that you'd be giving us specifics tomorrow. Do you expect that the guidelines will just carry on the guidelines that have been in place now for 15 days? Could there potentially be some modification? Also, you have some travel restrictions that come up for reconsideration.
Yeah.
The one from the EU on April 13th.
Right.
Canada, U.S., Mexico border
They'll be
on
staying.
April the 21st. What will happen with all
They'll
of
be
that?
staying, and we may add a few more, but the guidelines will be very much as they are, maybe even toughened up a little bit. But they're having a big impact. They're having a tremendous impact, and we're starting to see it. And that's the key. We're starting to see the impact that they're having.
And if I could ask you to, you talked about Ford now ramping up production of ventilators. The government is sending thousands of ventilators across the country. Clearly, the supply is increasing. But when you look at the production curve against the hospitalization curve, can you guarantee that everyone who needs a ventilator in the next few weeks will be able to get one?
Well, I think that some are ramping up to a level that they're not going to have to, John, and I think that we also have kept in reserve. We have almost 10,000 ventilators in our line. We have them. We've held back just because we did the stockpile. We didn't want to give them because we don't know where the emergency. This hits like so fast. It comes so quickly. And we have 10,000. We're probably going to send some of them now. We've been sending a lot to Michigan and various other states. We'll probably send some additional ones to Michigan. New York's been doing very well, but we can add some more to New York. We're adding them to the areas that are having a problem. Even Alabama all of a sudden flared up a little bit, as you saw over the last couple of days, and we'll send them down to Alabama. So we have 10,000. We kept them for this very specific purpose. It sounds like a lot, but it's not when you think about it. But we're making a lot, and when you see, they're talking about hundreds of thousands being made in a very short period of time, because if you look at what so we have now 10 companies at least making the ventilators. And we say go ahead because honestly, other countries really, they'll never be able to do it. It's a very complex piece of equipment, and it's big and expensive.
So do you believe as we approach this peak in a couple of weeks that there will be enough for the American
I
population?
do think so, yes, I do think so. I think we're going to be in very good shape. And we had a great call today with the governors, and I actually said, I hope that the media is listening to this call, because it was a really good call, and that was randomly selected, largely Democrats and Republicans, and I think for the most part they were saying thank you for doing a great job, and we discussed that at the end of the call. So it really, people are very happy with what we're doing. Now the circumstances are so terrible because of what's going on, but I think they're very impressed by the federal government. I watched that beautiful ship floating in today into, weeks ahead of schedule, almost 4 weeks ahead of schedule into New York Harbor, Comfort. And I watched the Mercy floating in to Los Angeles almost a week ago. and they are stocked. They are really ready to go. They're stocked with both talent and tremendous amounts of equipment. And the Navy and everybody else involved, they got it ready so fast. It's just incredible what they can do. They've geared up. That's why, I mean, I am so impressed by the people involved. Mike and I were talking about it before, the level of genius to put it all together so quickly. This wasn't a month ago. Nobody ever heard of this. Nobody had any idea. The Mercy was being maintained. It was in maintenance for a month. And when they heard we needed it, and I was surprised, they said, "Sir, we're ready to go." I said, "What do you mean you're not going to be ready for 3 weeks?" "No, sir. We're all ready to go." It was incredible. So, and we've had many instances like this. I think the building of the hospital, 2,900 beds in a matter of days, a few days, is just incredible. Governor Cuomo was impressed, and Gavin Newsom was impressed by what we've been doing with Gavin and California and Los Angeles area in particular, but really San Francisco, all over California. When you look at what we're doing with Michigan, we're getting along very well with Michigan. It's a great place. We're sending a lot of things to Michigan because that's becoming a hotbed, especially a specific area, as you know. It's become very hot. It's become, I don't know, could even at some point supersede, but it's got to be taken care of. So we're, the relationship we have with the governors, I just wish you could, because we took a lot of calls from a lot of different states, and I wish you could have heard. Even a thing where, like, the governor of Ohio calls, where he has a company that does the sterilization, but they have a problem because it's not going quickly at the FDA, and I call up Steve, and Steve comes in, and he said, we'll get it done, and they checked it, and they got it done almost immediately. And originally they were approving it for 10,000 masks, and then it was supposed to be for 80, and they ultimately approved it for 120,000. That's a tremendous number. And I kept wondering, why aren't they sterilizing these masks? I assumed maybe you couldn't do it. But then I'd look at them, and they'd look like, you know, it's not cloth. It's something that looks like it could be sterilized, and that's what they've done. And that's the machine that is over there, actually. They have a piece of the machine over there. I won't bother showing it to you. And this is incredible when you talk about 5 minutes, 15 minutes, and highly accurate, and not nearly as disturbing to do as the other tests. So we've just gotten better. We're doing things that nobody else ever thought of. Please.
The DMV has issued stay-at-home orders, but Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia took it pretty far. He issued a 70-day stay-at-home order. Is that constitutional, first off? And secondly, do you think it's warranted to go ahead and issue a 70-day guidance at this point?
Well, we're letting the governors do in their states pretty much what they want with our supervision, and they consult with us in all cases. Some go further than others, as you know. I mean, I could give you plenty of examples, but I'm not going to do that because we never want to be controversial. But some of the governors have taken it a step further, and people are questioning that. But look, staying at home with respect to what we're talking about doesn't bother me at all. People should be staying at home. That's what we want. OAN, please. OAN.
2,405 Americans have died from coronavirus in the last 60 days.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you have 2,369 children who are killed by their mothers through elective abortions each day. That's 16,500 children killed every week.
Yeah.
2 states have suspended elective abortion to make more resources available for coronavirus cases. That's Texas and Ohio. Do you agree with states who are placing coronavirus victims above elective abortions, and should more states be doing the same?
Well, I think what we're doing is we're trying to, as a group, governors, and that's Republicans and Democrats, we're just working together to solve this problem. That's been what you're mentioning has been going on for a long time, and it's a sad event, a lot of sad events in this country. But what we're doing is now we're working on the virus, we're working on that hidden enemy, and I think we're doing a great job on, as good a job as you could possibly do. When Tony and Deborah came up with numbers yesterday to say that if we did nothing, you could lose 2.2 up to 2 point, maybe beyond, I don't know, maybe beyond, but 2.2 million people if we did nothing. And I can't tell you what the unfortunate final toll is going to be, but it's going to be a very small fraction of that. So we're doing an awfully good job, I think, with what we're doing. Please, go ahead.
Ohio?
Please.
Are you considering at all a nationwide stay-at-home order? I know there's a lot of states that have put them in place, but some haven't. I was wondering if you were considering some sort of broad stay-at-home order. And then I have a question for Dr. Birx, too, if you don't mind.
Well, we've talked about it. We, there are some parts of the country that are in far deeper trouble than others. There are other parts that, frankly, are not in trouble at all. So hopefully, we're going to be able to keep it that way by doing what we're doing. So we talked about quarantine, as you know, the other day. A group came to me and they wanted to do the quarantine, and I said, let's think about it. And we did, and we studied it. And by the time the evening came, it just was something that was very unwieldy, very tough to enforce, and something we didn't want to do. But we did advisory, and I think that's doing well. I mean, I look at the streets. You look at New York, where I look down Fifth Avenue. Today they were showing a shot of Fifth Avenue and sort of prime time, and there was almost nobody on Fifth Avenue. I've never seen that before. There was no car, there was no anything. So I think the people of this country have done an incredible job. If we do that, we will let you know, but it's pretty unlikely, I would think, at this time.
Can I ask a quick question for Dr. Birx
Yes.
also? So, Dr. Birx, if you don't mind, you had mentioned today that this model that predicts 100,000 deaths is if we do things almost perfectly. So I wanted to know, are we currently doing things almost perfectly, or are there more things we need to be doing to cap, to not exceed that 100,000, 200,000 model?
Please, come.
Thank you. I think that's a really great question. And tomorrow we'll go through all of the graphs and all the information that we took to the president for the decision. But and I just want to thank the data team that's working day and night to I usually get my data about 2 a.m. from them, and they assimilate all the data from all the states. And when you look at all of the states together, all of them are moving in exactly the same curves. And so that's why we really believe this needs to be federal guidance, so that every state understands that it may look like 2 cases today that become 20, that become 200, that become 2,000. And that's what we're trying to prevent. And I think states still have that opportunity, but they're going to have to do all of these these recommendations are recommendations that the globe is using. And so we really do recommend that every governor, every mayor looks very carefully and ensures that their communities are utilizing these guidance.
Thank you very much. Thanks. It is amazing. You look at Louisiana, and for a long time it was just staying at nothing. And then all of a sudden, I look one day and I see a lot and a lot and a lot, and then it explodes. And now we're working very carefully and very powerfully with them. We're building hospitals, so we're building a lot of different things for Louisiana. So it's very important. Yeah, please, go ahead.
Warned that this could be seasonal, cyclical virus. So, and maybe both of you could comment on this, and Dr. Birx as well. Are you prepared for this to strike again, say, in the fall? All the efforts that are taking place right now to contain this, to be proactive,
We're prepared. I hope it doesn't happen. Doctor, would you like to say something about that? I hope it doesn't happen, but we're certainly prepared.
In fact, I would anticipate that would actually happen because of the degree of transmissibility. However, if you come back in the fall, it will be a totally different ballgame of what happened when we first got hit with it in the beginning of this year. There will be several things that will be different. Our ability to go out and be able to test, identify, isolate, and contact trace will be orders of magnitude better than what it was just a couple of months ago. In addition, we have a number of clinical trials that are looking at a variety of therapeutic interventions. We hope one or more of them will be available. And importantly, as I mentioned to you many times at these briefings, is that we have a vaccine that's on track and multiple other candidates. So I would anticipate that, a year to a year and a half, we'd be able to do it under an emergency use if we start seeing an efficacy signal we may be able to even use a vaccine at the next season. So things are going to be very, very different. What we're going through now is going to be more than just lessons learned. It's going to be things that we have available to us that we did not have before.
Okay, please, go ahead.
Thank you. Scott Gottlieb, your former FDA commissioner, wrote a roadmap for recovery after the
Yeah, very
coronavirus.
interesting, I saw it.
He suggests, the roadmap suggests that everybody wear a mask in public. Is that something that the task force thinks is a good
Well, we
idea?
haven't discussed it to that extent, but it's certainly something we could discuss. We're getting certainly the number of masks that you need. We are in the process of talking about things. I saw his suggestion on that, so we'll take a look at it for a period of time, not forever. I mean, we want our country back. We're not going to be wearing masks forever, but it could be for a short period of time after we get back into gear. I could see something like that happening for a period of time, but I would hope it would be a very limited period of time. Doctors, they'll come back and say for the rest of our lives we have to wear masks.
The roadmap also talks about doing GPS for social distancing, maybe following people's phones, and hotels for isolation for people, giving them free hotel rooms. Are those ideas that you're looking at?
Well, the GPS, that's a very severe idea. I've been hearing about it, GPS. So what happens, a siren goes off if you get too close to somebody? That's pretty severe, but he's somebody, he was with me for a long time. They did a great job at FDA, so we're taking a look. I just received it a little while ago. He sent it over, so very good. Go ahead, let's give it a shot.
What do you say to Americans who are upset with you over the way you downplayed this crisis over the last couple of months? We have it very much under control in this country. The coronavirus is very much under control in the USA. It's going to disappear. It's like a miracle. It will disappear. At March 4th, we have a very small number of people in this country infected. March 10th, we're prepared. We're doing a great job with it. It will go away. Just stay calm. It will go away. What do you say to Americans who believe that you got this wrong?
And I do want them to stay calm, and we are doing a great job. If you look at those individual statements, they're all true. Stay calm. It will go away. You know it is going away, and it will go away, and we're going to have a great victory. And it's people like you and CNN that say things like that, it's why people just don't want to listen to CNN anymore. You could ask a normal question. The statements I made are, I want to keep the country calm. I don't want panic in the country. I could cause panic much better than even you. I would make you look like a minor league player. But you know what? I don't want to do that. I want to have our country be calm and strong and fight and win. And it will go away. And it is incredible, the job that all of these people are doing, putting them all together, the job that they're doing. I am very proud of the job they're doing, that Mike Pence is doing, that the task force has done, that Honeywell and Procter & Gamble and Mike and all of these people have done. I'm very proud. It's almost a miracle, and it is, the way it's all come together. And instead of asking a nasty, snarky question like that, you should ask a real question. And other than that, I'm going to go to somebody else. Please, go ahead, please.
You expressed some concern in the past that medical supplies were going out the back door and that perhaps some hospitals were doing things worse.
Well, I expressed what was told to me by a tremendous power in the business. He said that at a New York hospital for a long period of time, he was giving 10,000, maybe maximum 20,000 masks over a short time. And all of a sudden he's giving 300,000. And I said, no matter how bad this is, could that be possible? He said, no. So there's only a couple of things that could happen. Is it going out the back door? And I've reported it to the city and let the city take a look at it. But when you go from 10,000 masks to 300,000 masks, Mike, over the same period of time, there's something going on. Now, I'm not making any charges. But when everyone's looking for masks, and by the way, that's another thing, we're making a lot of masks, and the sterilization process is going to save a lot of time and a lot of masks. But when you have the biggest distributor of product that distributes to many of the big hospitals and hospital chains, and he brings up a statistic like that, and I know you're trying to make a big deal out of it, but you shouldn't be. You should actually go over to the hospital and find out why. You shouldn't be asking me. I'm just saying, That's the way it is. You should go over there as a great reporter. I have no idea who you are, but that's okay. You should go over there, go to the hospital, and find out how come you used to get 10,000 masks and you had a full hospital. New York City, always full. And how come now you have 300,000 masks, despite the virus and all, you have three. How do you go from 10 to 300,000? And this is very serious stuff. I mean, I could see from 10 to 20 or from 10 to 40 or 50 or something. But how do you go from 10 to 300,000 masks? So what I think you should do is I'm sure you're a wonderful investigative reporter. You should go to the hospital and find out why. Okay, yeah.
Your DOJ to look into it, sir?
Steve, please. Well, it's so bad for the economy, but the economy is number 2 on my list. First, I want to save a lot of lives. We're going to get the economy back. I think the economy is going to come back very fast. Steve's just asking about the economy. What's it like? We basically shut down our country. And we did that in order to keep people separated, keep people apart. They're not working in offices. They're not in airplanes together. You know, we really shut it down. And, you know, 150, 151 other countries are pretty much shut down. But here we had the greatest economy in the world. We had the greatest economy in the history of our country. And I had to go from doing a great job for 3 years to shutting it down. But you know what? We're going to build it up, and we're going to build it up rapidly. And I think in the end we'll be stronger for it. We learned a lot. We learned a lot. And I have to say, we've had great relationships with a lot of countries. China sent us some stuff, which was terrific. Russia sent us a very, very large plane load of things, medical equipment, which was very nice. Other countries sent us things that I was very surprised at, very happily surprised. We learned a lot. We're learning a lot. And we're also learning that the concept of borders is very important, Steve. It's very important. Having borders is very, very important. But we have done an incredible job. The economy is going to come back. My focus is saving lives. That's the only focus I can have. We're going to bring the economy back, and we'll bring it back fast. Yeah, please. Follow up. Go ahead.
Mr. President.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. You've said several times that the United States has ramped up testing. So just talk a little quicker or a little louder. Mr. President, you said several times that the United States has ramped up testing, but the United States is still not testing per capita as many people as other countries like South Korea. Why is that, and when do you think that number will be on par with other countries?
Yeah, well,
and
it's very much on par. Look, per capita, we have areas of country that's very wide. I know South Korea better than anybody. It's a very tight. Do you know how many people are in Seoul? Do you know how big the city of Seoul is? 38 million people. That's bigger than anything we have. 38 million people, all tightly wound together. We have vast farmlands. We have vast areas where they don't have much of a problem. In some cases, they have no problem whatsoever. We have done more tests. I didn't talk about per capita. We have done more tests by far than any country in the world, by far. Our testing is also better than any country in the world. And when you look at that, as simple as that looks, that's something that's a game changer. And every country wants that, every country. So rather than asking a question like that, you should congratulate the people that have done this testing, because this administration inherited a broken system, a system that was obsolete, a system that didn't work. It was okay for a tiny, small group of people, but once you got beyond that, it didn't work. We have built an incredible system to the fact where we have now done more tests than any other country in the world, and now the technology is really booming. I just spoke to, I spoke to a lot. I'm not going to even mention. I spoke to a number of different testing companies today, and the job that they've done and the job that they're doing is incredible. But when Abbott comes out and does this so quickly, it's really unreal. In fact, one company I have to say that stands out in the job, and I think I can say this, I don't want to insult anybody else, but Roche. Roche has been incredible in the testing job they've done, and they're ramping it up exponentially. It's up, 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 up. And you should be saying congratulations instead of asking a really snarky question, because I know exactly what you mean by that. You should be saying congratulations to the men and women who have done this job, who have inherited a broken testing system and who have made it great. And if you don't say it, I'll say it. I want to congratulate all of the people. You have done a fantastic job, and we will see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
I want to weigh in real quick here, as the president is ending up his meeting, his conference here. David and I, my brother that died in 2017, planted this cross out here representing the broken system. A lot of these people around here thought that we was being slanderous to Christ that represented or helps to represent the cross involving the system. The bottom line is that the cross in and of itself was the system, even before Jesus ever come into play, because that was the way that the system impugnated pain and punishment upon the people that was deserving of that type of punishment. Today, you know as well as I do, we don't hang people from the crosses. But we still have a system that is devoted towards bringing punishment to the crimes of the people that's committing the crimes, because without a system, you got total anarchy. And that was one of the reasons why that God decided to destroy the old world with water, was because there was no credible system. And the system that they had was based around a corruptible system, to where only the wicked and the demonic and the mean and the cruel and the evil people was dominating the good people. Whenever the system gets that far out of check, that's whenever God himself will step in and allow for a severe hardship to fall upon humanity. That's what we're dealing with today. A hardship. We are dealing with a beast of burden that has been planted upon not only the American society, but upon to the world, in regard to the devil being leashed, Satan being leashed out to kill, steal, and destroy. And it's just as the book of Revelations talks about, that in the last days Satan will rise up in great wrath, because he knoweth his time is short. It's up to we the people to fix the system. It's up to we the people to fix that in which what the cross that represented the system. And if we can't fix the system, then God inevitably will fix us, or he'll just give us over to a reprobate and let us believe a lie and to be damned. That's the part that we don't want to happen to humanity. There's no doubt that President Trump is trying everything in the world to detour around some of the questions that are leading to the fault of him not pressing the red button, the panic button, the warning button, the get ready button. But as I have said before, it's not going to do a bit of good to hash out old, troublesome, mean problems that at this point in time we're not going to be able to do nothing about. Now come the election, when the election comes about, if people want to hold the president at that time, his feet to the fire, towards him not being Johnny on the spot in recognizing the severity of this coronavirus, then is whenever by and large, the citizens of this country can go to the booths and they can make their stand in making their point that we find that your job that you done was inadequate, and we no longer want you in power to perceive any more of our affairs. But only then is whenever it needs to be addressed. Right now, all it's doing is causing that much more harm, that much more pain. It's causing that much more confusion. And there's no doubt there'll come a time to where that will become a leading conversation towards the who, the what, the when, and the why. But right now, in the middle of the storm, is not that time to be bringing those affairs up. We realize that a great deal of the people are upset. We realize that a great deal of the people are heartbroken. We realize that a great deal of the people have been caught flat-footed, or they have been caught blindsided by all this, that has really added that much more misery, insult to misery. But at the same time, you keep in mind the position that Donald Trump was in. If he would have got the cart in front of the horse, and I'm using old Southern terminology here, if he would have got the cart in front of the horse, they would have basically ridiculed him and laughed him off the stage because he spent all this much time and all this much money and created all these problems that he never should have created to begin with. So he was basically in a bad position as a leader of the free world towards damned if you do and damned if you don't. Now, I don't know if people like this journalist wearing the blue top can understand that or not, because you really don't have no right in judging someone until you yourself have walked in he or she in their shoes. And I realize that to whom much is given, much is required. Much is required. And I'll admit that whenever I took notice of it, I believe in the second or the third week of January, I'm going to go as far as to give him another 2 weeks, 14 days, that within the first week of February is whenever there should have been some major warning signs going up about the coronavirus. It shouldn't have been, oh, it'll be gone in a few, it'll be like, it shouldn't have been those type of statements. Because whenever you're dealing with a biological germ, even the best of the best scientists out there truly don't know from one day to another towards how it's going to evolve and how it's going to mutate into something either greater or something weaker. They really don't know, because it's got a mind of its own. It's got an entity of its own. But the reason why that we put the cross out here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, wasn't at all to make fun of God or God's Holy Son pertaining to Jesus Christ. It wasn't towards trying to defile the scriptures in any form or fashion. It wasn't to try to bring any type of embarrassment to what the Bible teaches. It was to bring awareness and advisory in the sense of the broken cross, representing the broken system. And no, I'm not talking about the Southern Cross as far as it being the Confederate cross. Our intent was to put out a message that did not represent the North, that did not represent the South, but it was a message intended solely upon to the system that had become broken. And if anything, I want to credit the president, because he has done a remarkable job in so many different areas of a broken system. Obama almost finished this country off. And all of a sudden, you got somebody that is trying though he may not be qualified and he may not be perfect in every area, but at least he's trying to get things right. I'll admit, he made a boo-boo in his call towards not bringing awareness of the severity of the problem quite soon enough. But once more, we're dealing with spilt milk. That's already occurred. Now we need to fend for our lives. Now we need to help each other. Now is when we need to stick together. Now is whenever we need to use common sense methods in trying to work our way out of this storm that we're in. Now is not the time to be bickering and arguing about what has occurred in the past, and let's try to perfect the present so that we can modify the future. The future for not just ourselves, but our future for our children and our children's children, and possibly for their children, to make a good, positive, strong energy point that even though we're in the center of a storm, it's not like the sky is falling. It's not like it's the end of the world. Yes, it's bad. Yes, it's bad. Yes, I'm going to try to use every type of precaution that I can think of towards washing my hands, staying away from people, not getting around big crowds. I'm going to listen to the professionals. But I'm not going to over-dramatize it to the point that I think that the end of the world's fixing to happen tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Because if that would be the case, that would mean that I would be out here fear-mongering, spreading fear. And we are not supposed to be fear-mongers. According to the Bible, we're supposed to have faith and maintain our faith pertaining to not only today, but of a better tomorrow. That is the whole Christianity concept, is to keep your faith. Maintain your faith. Fear not, the Bible says. Fear not, fear not, fear not. He who shall overcometh, in the first 4 chapters of Revelations. He who shall overcometh, the same shall be saved, ultimately in the end. For as many as I love, I will rebuke and chasten. Fear not, the Bible continues to say. We can't walk around with a chip on our shoulder, with a monkey on our back, with fear, thinking that the world is fixing to collapse and that we're all fixing to become annihilated off of the planet. That's the work of the devil. We don't need that type of environment. We don't need that type of toxicity to add insult to misery on top of the combining problems that we're already dealing with. There'll come a time to where we'll address why the president did not choose to raise an awareness quicker than what he did. But right now, I really don't feel like that's the time. That's just my personal opinion, and that didn't cost you a thing.
Thank you.
Didn't cost you a thing. Not a penny.
So that's going to do it. A lot to get to. The president turned and is going back to the Oval Office. Notably different today. We heard from Dr. Fauci, but not Dr. Birx. Not the vice president, who remains seated in the front row. Before we bring our guest in, at the risk of some repetition, because there was so much, let's go through it as I look at my notes.
I love what the Pillar Man said there at the last, whenever he said that he took that off the cuff, and he asked the president if he minded him going ahead and saying what he said. I think he made a good ending speech in regard to my pillow.
The president started off with his hope to save 1 million American lives. He said it's all about the next 30 days. He kept saying we have to get back. He means America getting back to life and work and school and business. He talked about testing. Indeed, that was that last exchange. He is said to have asked, why are they throwing away these disposable masks? And the way he tells the story, that started off this drive to make machinery and technology to sterilize masks that were made to be disposable and allow them for more than one use. The truth in a lot of hospitals and medical centers in this country is doctors have worn a single mask or very few of them throughout their whole shift, when doctors used to change PPE between sick patients. That was right about the time he interrupted by saying, "My hair's blowing around and it's mine." He then said about his own team, "We're really getting the job done. People are very impressed." He said, "We're shipping to Italy product we don't need." He didn't itemize. He said $100 million worth of things, medical and surgical things. Then up came the guy from MyPillow, who gave an update on his business, in part an ad for MyPillow. He transitioned into remarks he had written that became an ad for Donald Trump's election, and as he put it, the return of God into public life and schools. Then we heard from the heads of Honeywell, Jockey Underwear, Procter & Gamble. He gave us the courtesy of listing all their consumer products. United Technologies. President called up Seema Verma, who runs CMS, and as he called her up, he said, "Talk about how positive it's been." She came up and launched the proposal that we should think about hospitals without walls. By that, she meant using dorms, parking lots, gymnasiums, hotels, and arenas, what we've seen in cities like New York. The president, again, he had returned to this talking point a month ago. Nobody had ever heard of this. It was unclear whether he meant the coronavirus, it spread like this, or the Comfort Hospital ship, which took up residence alongside the west side of Manhattan today. Called on a reporter for One America Network, who promptly asked a question about elective abortions. He was asked a question about this being a cyclical, seasonal illness. Dr. Fauci helped with the answer for that. At one point, the president turned to the two doctors over to the side and said, "Doctors, don't come back and suggest we wear masks for the rest of our lives." He told Jim Acosta of CNN, "I could cause panic much greater than even you." He said it's almost a miracle the way it has come together, meaning the administration's response to this. Said to another reporter, "I have no idea who you are, but that's okay." And again, he sowed doubt about a major hospital in New York somehow dealing masks out the back door, perhaps on a secondary market. He hasn't itemized, except for his conversation with a friend of his who is giving large sums of masks to a hospital in New York. Along the way, the president mentioned he has an acquaintance who is in a coma with coronavirus. It's a lot to cover, and joining us to do that before we hand it over to Ari Melber, Dr. Anne Rimoin, epidemiologist at UCLA in Los Angeles, and Eugene Robinson, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the Washington Post. Eugene, I'm going to spare the doctor the discussion of the theater we just watched and my review of the journalism that came out of it. What did you make of the event we've just witnessed today?
Well, that was a good review you just gave, Brian.
The governor just today saying we are now beyond staggering. This comes as President Trump, after first suggesting America be reopened by Easter Sunday, now extends the federal stay-at-home guidelines until April 30th. And the president moments ago saying we are sort of putting it all on the line. The new estimates tonight, the potential death toll in the U.S., scientists now say as many as 200,000 Americans could die. And Dr. Deborah Birx adding, that's if we do things perfectly, if we all adhere to the guidelines. In some places tonight, checkpoints now at state borders, major cities in the Midwest bracing for the worst, Chicago and Detroit, and what they're seeing already. The stories from the front lines tonight, the well-known neurosurgeon who has died, the Miami ICU nurse who has died as well, A doctor, a grandfather of 6, and marathon runner in intensive care tonight. And the shortages, not just protective gear, masks, and ventilators, but supplies, including Tylenol. In California tonight, the surge now being seen, ICU visits doubling. And in Washington state tonight, the choir that rehearsed earlier this month, keeping their distance, now reports tonight at least 45 members have been diagnosed or are ill, reports at least 2 dead. Tonight, cases doubling in Louisiana this weekend alone, and inside one Louisiana church, more than 1,000 gathering. And in Florida, the pastor who urged congregants to attend Sunday services is now under arrest. The new questions tonight over masks. Should Americans, if they have them, be wearing them? Would it help? What the scientists, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, are now saying. And Dr. Jen Ashton, right here again tonight, answering your questions.
This is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir.
Good evening, and it's great to start another week with all of you at home. And we begin tonight with the widening toll coronavirus across this country. President Trump saying just moments ago, challenging times are ahead for the next 30 days. It comes after the president reversed course on trying to lift restrictions by Easter, after recommendations from his own doctors and scientists on his team who are now saying, even if we do it all perfectly, follow these social distancing guidelines, we could still see up to 200,000 Americans dying from coronavirus. We will carefully get to it all tonight, and this evening the new numbers now in. Soaring. In just 2 weeks' time, we've gone from about 4,000 cases to more than 159,000 cases tonight. Nearly 3,000 people have died. Tonight, at least 37 states now telling people to stay at home, about 1 in 3 Americans now under restrictions. In New York City tonight, the epicenter of the U.S. outbreak, the U.S. Navy hospital ship Comfort has now pulled into port with 1,000 beds to help hospitals that are simply overwhelmed. A field hospital is now up in Central Park. And this grim image in Brooklyn tonight, a body being loaded into a refrigerated truck. New York's governor today calling the virus death toll, quote, beyond staggering already. 250 deaths in the city in just 24 hours. Tonight, we are out across this country, hospitals in New Orleans, Detroit, and Chicago stretched to the limit. And new questions tonight about wearing masks in this country. If Americans have one, should they be wearing it? Would it help? What the scientists are now saying and what the president said just moments ago. We will get to it all tonight, and we begin with ABC's Chief National Affairs Correspondent Tom Llamas leading us off.
Please stay inside. Please pray for the people.
Tonight, the governor of New York says the situation is painfully clear, and these images show it. A body loaded into a refrigerated truck outside this Brooklyn hospital. The city bracing for a mounting death toll. More than 1,200 lives lost.
We've lost over 1,000 New Yorkers. To me, we're beyond staggering already. We've reached staggering.
Help sailing in today. The naval hospital ship the Comfort pulling into New York Harbor. The 1,000-bed facility ready to take on extra non-COVID COVID-19 patients.
We've done this in war zones, in earthquake zones, and things like that. So we know how to do this. We've never done it in some place like this before.
In the heart of Manhattan, a new field hospital specifically built for COVID-19 patients. The group Samaritan's Purse building it in just days.
Starting tomorrow, this is going to be a working intensive care unit in the middle of Central Park, complete with hospital beds, ventilators, overhead lighting, even a negative pressure tube, sucking all that contaminated air out, making sure the room is sterilized.
As New York is pushed to the brink, health experts warn the potential U.S. death toll could soar as high as 100,000 to 200,000 people.
I think it's entirely conceivable that if we do not mitigate to the extent that we're trying to do, that you could reach that number.
The president forced to reverse an earlier proposed plan to reopen the country by Easter, now extending social distancing guidelines to April 30th. Dr. Anthony Fauci saying the task force argued strongly with the president to extend them, and the president listened.
Challenging times are ahead for the next 30 days, and this is a very vital 30 days. We're sort of putting it all on the line this 30 days.
Tonight, we're learning one of the latest victims is pediatric neurosurgeon Dr. James Goodrich from New York's Montefiore Medical Center. The world-renowned doctor making medical history when he successfully separated conjoined twin boys during a 27-hour surgery. Doctors across the country struggling to help families unable to visit their loved ones in the ICU.
We make it a point to call families twice a day, but I can't imagine being that person on the other end, having to wait for that phone call, never knowing what sort of news you're going to get.
An emotional toll also on nurses who are so often the critical link between patient and family.
I just came from a patient's room. He's actively dying, positive diagnosis of COVID-19, and his family can't come, so I had to FaceTime his family, and it was just so heartbreaking.
In New Jersey, 8 patients dying at a single nursing home. And 911 call centers stretched thin as well. In New York, a record 6,000 calls in one day. First responders also hit hard. About 5,000 members of the NYPD are out sick. More than 900 officers and 260 firefighters testing positive. And now in New York City, a $500 fine for anyone ignoring social distancing rules.
The police and all our agencies are authorized to use fines. We've given enough warning.
Tougher penalties in Maryland as well, where cases surged 400% in just the last week. 66 residents infected at one nursing home. The governor ordering residents to stay at home or risk up to a $5,000 fine or jail time.
This region is about to be hit with the virus in the same way that some other major metropolitan areas have been.
In Louisiana, officials say they need 14,000 ventilators and fear they could run out next week.
If the metros and the rural areas don't take care now, by the time you see it, it has penetrated your community pretty significantly.
Cases spiking in cities like Chicago and Detroit. This convention center in the Motor City is going to be turned into a 900-bed hospital. And in Philadelphia, this arena at Temple University transformed into an overflow hospital after cases in that city topped more than 1,000. And tonight in Los Angeles, the Naval Hospital, the Mercy, already taking on extra patients to ease pressure on so many hospitals.
That image from Los Angeles. We also took note of that image right behind you today here in New York City. Tom's in front of the Comfort tonight, the Navy hospital ship. And Tom, we know this is going to be for other patients as the hospitals in the city try to deal with patients who have coronavirus already overwhelmed. So when will the ship there be able to take some of those other patients?
David, I'm told they're going to be able to see patients starting tomorrow. It is a massive ship, and it got here earlier than expected. David, one more note. At the top of the broadcast, you said more than 250 people died here in New York. That's hard to put into perspective, but here's even more perspective. Every 6 minutes, someone in New York right now is dying of COVID-19. David?
Yeah, it's just impossible to fathom. Our thanks to you, Tom, again tonight. The surge in cases, of course, is being seen across this country, not just in New York City. And tonight, what we're seeing and hearing from the front lines in California and from Chicago to Detroit to New Orleans. And the growing death toll for the healthcare workers. That well-known neurosurgeon we reported on there a moment ago, also the longtime ICU nurse, both dying from the coronavirus. And tonight, the shortages. Some hospitals remain in need of masks, those ventilators, now even Tylenol. And there is news coming in tonight on a church choir in Washington State who were hurt many days ago. They thought they were keeping a safe distance. Tonight, at least 45 now sickened. At least 2 are reported dead. Here's ABC's Matt Gutman from California.
Tonight, the virus attacking frontline doctors and nurses. Miami ICU nurse Araceli Buendia Illegan, who treated thousands of patients over 3 decades, on Friday dying with alarming speed. She'd mentored her niece Joanna, also an ICU nurse in England.
How do you feel going back to work? What does that make you think about?
Well, to be honest, I'm terrified for my life, because especially what happened to my aunt.
Dr. Arnold Wegg believes he contracted the virus when a patient coughed on him.
My father is truly in the fight for his life.
Wegg is a 63-year-old grandfather of 6 and a marathon runner. He's now in intensive care for the first time as a patient.
Yesterday was my parents' 38th wedding anniversary, and this is the first time they couldn't spend it together.
Hospitals now reporting drastic shortages of masks and protective gear. Doctors telling us they have a single mask assigned for an entire week. A national survey found 88% of cities do not have adequate supply of PPE.
I have nurses that call me
on a daily basis to tell me that they're scared, to tell me they don't know what to do. We didn't sign up for this.
Mary McDonald recorded this video saying it's not just supplies, it's basic medication.
We're out of Tylenol. We're out of Tylenol. I don't know what I can do to save people anymore.
Tonight, California officials warning they're on the verge of a massive spike. The state has at least 5,700 cases and rising.
When the mayor says that he's seeing a surge in Los Angeles, where is that?
It's all over. So what's probably most concerning is the number of COVID-19 patients that would need ICU admission doubled over the weekend.
But testing is slow. On average, it's taking 7 days to get results.
We have currently over 60,000 tests waiting for results.
One doctor on the front lines facing a cruel twist of fate. This moving image showing Arkansas medical resident Jared Burke's social distancing from his own 1-year-old son, Zeke. And then on Saturday, an EF3 tornado destroying his family's home.
It felt like the house lifted up and then slammed back down. I was saying, God, I'm not ready to die yet. And luckily, I guess he heard me because I'm still here.
And north of Seattle, the latest example of how infectious the virus can be. A choir meeting on March 10th for a rehearsal after the outbreak had started. They tried to practice social distancing and used hand sanitizer, but tonight, 45 of the 60 who attended are infected. At least 2 have died.
This is only going to lead to more questions about the droplets, those tiny, minuscule droplets in the air. And in the meantime, Matt Gutman with us live tonight. He's at a new testing site in Los Angeles, and Met officials there are now telling you they're ramping up the number of tests. They're trying to improve the speed of getting results.
That's right, David. Last week, the city of LA had 0 tests. This week, they're doing about 2,000 a day. Next week, they hope to get it up to 10,000 a day. Now, the medical director here told us that ramping up testing is pointless unless they can cut the lag time in results to about 24 hours. If people have to wait a week for results, they could be out in public spreading the virus. David.
Of course, we've heard of people waiting longer than a week, in fact, as well, Matt, thanks to you tonight. And we are across the South this evening as well, as cases now spike in the newest hotspots. And we took note today of what we heard from top White House advisor Dr. Deborah Birx, warning that no state will remain untouched. ABC's Marcus Moore tonight from New Orleans.
Tonight, for the first time since Hurricane Katrina, the New Orleans Convention Center transformed to deal with an unfolding catastrophe, and a usually vibrant city is bracing. This is the historic French Quarter tonight. It is shut down, and health officials fear that Mardi Gras, that brought thousands of people right here to Bourbon Street, may have helped to spread this highly contagious virus. Over the weekend, cases of COVID-19 in Louisiana soaring from roughly 2,700 on Friday to just over 4,000 today.
We still have an awful lot of work to do to try to flatten the curve.
But that didn't stop hundreds from flocking to Sunday services at Life Tabernacle Church outside Baton Rouge.
They were all spread out, probably 1,200. So.
Some of the church's neighbors outraged.
We have a right too, man. Y'all need to shut that church down.
In Tampa, one megachurch pastor also defying stay-at-home orders.
People are going totally crazy. As the president said, he wants to get everybody back worshiping God come Easter Sunday. That needs to happen.
But hours later, the president changed his tune, and tonight, that pastor under arrest.
His reckless disregard for human life put hundreds of people in his congregation at risk, and thousands of residents who may interact with them this week in danger.
And David, the governor here in Louisiana said it is grossly irresponsible to ignore the stay-at-home order, adding that those who do take the time of first responders, making it more likely this virus will spread. David?
All right, Marcus Moore live in New Orleans, where they're seeing this as well in really stark numbers. Marcus, thank you. And what about masks? If Americans have them, should they be wearing them? Would they help? Of course, the medical community doesn't want a run on masks, but what the scientists are now saying if you have one, and what President Trump said about this just moments ago. Steve Osunsami at the CDC in Atlanta tonight.
Health authorities in Asia, where the numbers of COVID-19 cases are improving, say that Americans have it all wrong with face masks. The head of the Chinese Center for Disease Control tells Science Magazine that the big mistake in the US and Europe is that people aren't wearing masks. Many people have asymptomatic or pre-symptomatic infections. If they are wearing face masks, they can prevent droplets that carry the virus from escaping and infecting others. They believe that even masks made of simple fabrics are helpful. Jeremy Howard, a research scientist at the University of San Francisco, has looked at data from South Korea, Hong Kong, and Taiwan.
And they all tell the same story, which is that wearing a mask can decrease transmission by up to 50%.
In Geneva today, the World Health Organization came out and said the exact opposite.
We don't generally recommend the wearing of masks in public.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says part of the issue is supply, that if health workers weren't struggling with a shortage of masks, authorities might recommend them for everyone.
We're starting to re-examine the possibility that if there are enough masks, should everyone be wearing masks?
The president just spoke on this issue and says that he's open to this idea too, saying that his administration might recommend that all Americans wear masks all the time for a short period of time. David?
All right, Steve Osunsami on this issue of masks again tonight. Thank you, Steve. And in a moment here, Dr. Jen Ashton with your questions tonight, and word of a new combination of drugs now approved by the FDA to fight this virus. Dr. Jen on that. And remembering a country singer who has now died from the virus.
AT&T has connected us every day for over 100 years. And we're here for you, especially now, doing everything possible to keep you connected. Through the resilience of our network and people, we can keep learning, keep sharing, keep watching, and most of all, keep together. It's the job we've always done. It is the job we will always do.
You know, new customers save over average when they buy.
Pray for our loved ones. Pray for ourselves. May God have mercy on us all.
It's good medicine.
We're going to turn next tonight to your questions, as always, and Dr. Jen Ashton. And Jen, we learned that the FDA issued that emergency use authorization for hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine. So again, we've reported on this before, but again, what are the drugs? What are doctors hoping here?
So it's the malaria drugs in combination with azithromycin, not as an antibiotic really, but thinking as an anti-inflammatory. And this emergency use authorization frees doctors to prescribe these drugs to hospitalized teenage and adult patients with COVID-19. There's very limited data. We don't know if they're safe in patients with COVID-19, but there is a lot of hope hinging on these clinical trials and this emergency use authorization.
New hope for this combination. Again, it's hydroxychloroquine and Z-Pak, which many people know.
Exactly. But again, thinking not as a use as an antibiotic, but as an anti-inflammatory. So we'll need to see what the research shows.
All right, let's hope it works. Dr. Jen with us again tonight. Jen, thank you. When we come back here tonight, remembering the country music star who has now died from coronavirus.
Hi, I'm Bob Harper, and I recently had a heart attack.
Stores everywhere.
It should reduce the number of cases.
Well, the government says that despite the reduction in contact, it still expects to see a spike in hospital admissions over the next 2 to 3 weeks. 20,000 former staff members have now returned to the National Health Service, and London's biggest convention centre has been transformed into a temporary hospital. Hugh Pym has more on that.
Just a week ago, it was a giant conference hall with room for a dozen football pitches.
Now it's a hospital with intensive care beds and ventilators and ready in a few days' time to receive the first patients. The capacity eventually will be 4,000, and if those beds are used, it'll be the biggest hospital in the world.
We'll identify this area.
Simon Stevens, head of NHS England, toured the site at London's Excel Centre today and met some of those who are making things happen.
Today there are over 9,000 positive coronavirus patients in hospitals across England, and we know that number is only going to increase. That's why what you see here is a mass mobilisation taking place right across the country, but also at these new Nightingale hospitals. This has been an extraordinary team effort on the part of nurses and doctors and therapists and pharmacists across London, but also volunteers and paramedics and people returning to help.
The first staff were applauded in today. Volunteers from other hospitals and recently retired doctors and nurses will be caring here for seriously ill COVID-19 patients at what's now called the Nightingale Hospital.
There was Arctic lorries here last Tuesday, Wednesday when I was first here, and now we've got fully ready to take some patients. Now there's still a lot more work yet to be done, but huge progress about building a hospital in London, Nightingale London, in just less than 2 weeks. It is unbelievable.
It's in the heart of London's Docklands with business hotels all around. And the fact that they've transformed this conference centre into a giant hospital so quickly shows how serious they think the pressure on the NHS could be. Birmingham's National Exhibition Centre will house a Nightingale Hospital, so too the Central Convention Centre in Manchester. The SEC in Glasgow will also become a temporary hospital in 2 weeks' time, with space for up to 1,000 patients. The Principality Stadium in Cardiff is set to be used as an NHS field hospital. Northern Ireland too is creating dedicated facilities for coronavirus patients.
Hugh Pym there with the situation in the UK now, as countries around the world are closing their land and air borders to contain the spread of coronavirus. There are, of course, thousands of people who are stuck out at sea on cruise ships.
For what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty. We are tracking the severe weather tonight as well. 24 tornadoes reported this weekend, as you know, from Illinois to Arkansas, including this EF3. This one swept through Jonesboro, Arkansas, 140-mile-per-hour winds. Now the threat zone in the southern plains before moving into the southeast tomorrow. Wind, hail, and tornadoes possible in Alabama and Georgia. And a popular country singer has died of coronavirus. Grammy winner Joe Diffie, who had a string of hits in the 90s, revealed just Friday that he had tested positive before dying Sunday in Nashville. Carrie Underwood tonight tweeting, quote, "The music and legacy he leaves behind are legendary." He was just 61. Wow. When we come back here tonight, what's been happening every night right around this time in New York City? It's something.
We love the new apartment.
Comfort in wind.
Social distancing. Creating hysteria and panic over COVID-19. Now, Mr. Bolsonaro has been campaigning to ban lockdown measures, saying that the country's economy cannot stop.
If this total isolation goes on like this, we'll have a serious problem with a brutal amount of unemployment. It'll take years to resolve.
And it just wasn't on TV that he was discussing things like this. A couple of tweets by the president in which he questioned quarantine measures had to then be removed for violating the social network's rules on Twitter. Let's cross over to our South America correspondent Katie Watson, who joins us live from Sao Paulo. So let's start with these tweets that have since been removed from Twitter. What did they say?
Well, he put up a series of tweets on Sunday, as you pointed out, showing him completely flouting the rules. I mean, the guidelines, really, the world guidelines about how to interact at the moment with distance. He seems to be completely ignoring this. So certain tweets that were pulled down were contravened the rules of Twitter, thought to be obviously the rules that around public health at the moment because of coronavirus. But this is a president who he calls coronavirus the sniffles. He goes on TV telling people that if he was to get it, it wouldn't really be affected. It wouldn't really, impact him at all. And it's really the older generation who will be impacted, and they need to be protected. But everybody else, effectively, should get back to work, and the economy should start running again. That's really his message. The economy matters, and it's his big concern.
And when it comes to the economy, of course, he is concerned about it. But is the message getting across? What are the measures like in Brazil at the moment?
So there's a bit of a face-off, really, between the federal government, Bolsonaro, and the state governors. Pretty much all of the state governors, they've got together. They've had virtual meetings. They've written a letter to the president saying that we need to have backing for isolation measures. So here in Sao Paulo, state is responsible for about 30% of Brazil's wealth. Here, all the shops are shut, schools are shut, public spaces, businesses have been told to stop work. So it's incredibly quiet. It's very much, a very different world here in Brazil. But of course, Bolsonaro is he wants to try and stop this and wants things to reopen again.
Absolutely, Katie. As always, thank you so much, Katie Watson there in Sao Paulo. We have much more on our website, but for the time...
Capital One, you can open a new savings account in about 5 minutes.
Humira is proven to help stop further joint...
Funding for presentation of this program is provided by Babbel, an online program developed by language specialists teaching Spanish, French, and more. Funding was also provided by the Freeman Foundation, by Judy and Peter Bloom Kovler Foundation, pursuing solutions for America's neglected.
USNS Comfort pulling into New York Harbor, past the Statue of Liberty, the 1,000-bed ship here to relieve pressure on the city's overwhelmed hospitals. So many watching the Comfort come in. Charlene Nicklone waving the American flag. Actor Hugh Jackman watching from his window with this message.
Wow, look at this. This is history. To all the doctors, all the nurses, and everyone involved with the Navy, thank you, thank you, thank you. You guys are amazing. Keep up the amazing work.
And every night in New York City for the past several nights, 7 p.m. Eastern, and this. Applause from so many buildings from the balconies for the brave healthcare workers risking their own lives to save others. While back in New York Harbor, the Comfort getting ready for a city in need, a city grateful. And I know so many of you still have questions about the virus. We have a live special tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you then. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.
Let's be off this program. I think Americans are just now, a lot of them are just now waking up, including the president, in regards to the severity of all this. This isn't nothing to play with. This will be unlike anything that this current present world in the 21st century has ever had to experience or go through, for the most part. That will affect every country and every continent. Pray for your loved ones and pray for yourself. Just like the Bible says, pray that you can either endure it or pray that you're worthy to escape it, of the things that are going to be falling upon to the planet in the last days. Pray that you can either endure it or pray that you can avoid it, because these are the signs of the end times, the beginning phases of the great sorrows that will fall upon humanity, such as humanity has never known. For the first woe is now being fully implemented upon to the planet. And it won't be long. And Satan knows this. And that's the reason why he's rising up in great wrath. It won't be long till the second, third, fourth woes will come about too as well, pertaining to the opening of the 7 seals. Good luck to all of us. As we say again and again and again at the Windmill Ministries here at 291 Thompson Road, Sharon, Tennessee, zip code 38255. God bless. And God bless America.